Birdbox.
Man, I can't believe you would fake that kind of stuff. You actually had me worried. Get over here. We got a show to do. Come on. So we're talking about Birdbox, huh?
Yeah, Birdbox.
Okay. Well, I mean, I got a lot to say.
I have a lot to say about this movie as well.
Okay.
Yeah. First off, can I start off by saying I love this movie.
I thought it was great.
I absolutely love this movie. And it's really good to see Sandra Bullock back doing what she does best. She's an amazing actress.
Fantastic.
And she's kind of making a comeback. This is her second movie, if I'm not mistaken. She did Ocean's 8 about a year back ago. I really enjoyed her in that movie. And yeah, she's come back in Bird Box, and she gave a very riveting performance. So, movie takes place with Sandra Bullock. She's a very interesting character. She goes by the name of Mallory.
No.
And she's kind of mysterious. She is pregnant by herself.
At the start of the film. Yeah.
At the very start of the film. Well, okay, let's go even further back. At the very start of the film, she's talking to two very young children.
Yes.
And we kind of get into the mindset of who Mallory is as a person, because she's talking about how they're not allowed to take off their blindfolds, how they're going to be going down the river.
She will hurt them.
That's what I was just about to say. She has two kids that are no older than 5 years old, and she tells them, if you take off your blindfold, I will hurt you. Not only that, but she doesn't even call them by name. She calls them boy and girl.
Yes.
That's it.
Boy, you've got your puppy. Girl, you have your kitten.
Yeah, that's it. So we kind of get into the mindset of who Mallory is as a person. And the mystery kind of grows from there, who she is as a person, because although we just gave you one aspect of her, we don't really get much more from her in the movie. So
not until a little bit later.
Not till
20 minutes in.
Yeah. But even that is just like, it's a nugget, and a small nugget of information. We know that she's having this baby by herself.
Yeah.
And her sister, she mentions, you've gotten a lot more work done now that, what was her boyfriend's name?
No.
You've gotten a lot more work now that your boyfriend is gone. And then Sandra Bullock's character, Mallory, says, he was more than that to me. And her sister goes, was he though?
Well, she didn't call him a boyfriend, she called him a roommate.
Right. She called him a roommate.
You got a lot more done since your roommate's out of the house.
And she goes,
more than that.
Yeah. Was he though? So that says a lot. And we also have a scene where they're talking indirectly. Mm-hmm. Indirectly, they're talking about their parents. Yeah. They're talking about how indirectly the father was not there, and how the mother wasn't much of a mother. Mm-hmm. So
they didn't really have much parentage there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And although that kind of gives us a glimpse of who Mallory is as a person, I don't know. I kind of feel like it wasn't enough for us as the viewer to know who this person was. I mean, she's in pretty much every shot of this movie.
Yep.
And for them to kind of leave it to our imagination, I didn't really like that aspect.
Well, speaking of like leaving things to the imagination, I mean, they really could have left a lot of the backstory that we get to the imagination. Yeah. This movie is beautiful.
Yeah.
Just from top to bottom. Every shot has a lot of love and attention poured into it. Mm-hmm. Right from that initial sweeping establishing shot that we get in the beginning.
Yeah, on the river. Yeah.
At the same time, though, it does kind of feel like there are two different movies being told here, two different stories.
Yeah.
In a way that kind of really makes things really disjointed.
Yeah.
We've got on the one hand, we are introduced immediately to the river story, the thriller dynamic of the movie itself.
Yeah.
And then we're cut back to present day, where we're in a house, and it feels kind of almost like a horror-style drama movie, where they have to survive out the apocalypse. I mean, what did you think was stronger between those two dynamics? Did you think that it was woven well together?
I think it was woven well together. I feel like it did kind of drag on a little bit. There was a lot of going back and forth.
A lot of it.
There was a lot of going into present day, and a lot of going back into the past. And I feel kind of like that it could have been better separated between the two, and given the past more than the present, and when you go into the present, really go into the present, because everything that happened into the past, I really enjoyed the backstory of everything that happened in the house, but again, those aspects of going into the present and then it just shifting back.
It's jarring to like bring you right back.
It is kind of jarring, and you kind of get used to it about a good 45 minutes into it, but still.
Yeah. The fact you have to get used to it at all is kind of a little bit of an issue, I think.
Yeah.
Outside of that, though, it's still done so well.
Still done really
each
well.
Individual film, like if we do separate them and treat them as their own thing,
yeah.
they're both very strong independently. Yeah. And if they would have just maybe done less of the cutting back, at least in my opinion, it would have been a little bit stronger. Focused a little bit more on the river there, and just quit pulling us out of the intensity that river kind of bring forth. It brings forth a lot of dread for me when I see them on this river in such. They have one blanket with one coat, one pair of clothes, a box of 3 birds that get fed with drips of water, which I'm impressed that they live through as much of it as they do.
No food.
No food for any of them. They lose that a little bit through the trip, which just adds to the intensity of it. Yeah,
because there was a scene in the movie. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
There was a scene in the movie towards the end. They had been on the boat for about 6 hours. Yeah. No, you're right. It was a day, like a little later on, because there was a point where it says, they were there for 6 hours, and then like a little after a day. Mm-hmm. You know,
everything kind of hits the fan.
Everything kind of hits the fan. So I really did enjoy that aspect of when they got it right. They really got it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You really did feel like it was the end of the world.
Yeah.
When they did go back to the past, you really felt like it.
You know, things hit the fan really quickly. We get just enough backstory on Sarah Paulson and Sandra Bullock's relationship and how they factor into one another, and how she is pregnant and who she's pregnant. Who her child's father is or may not be, and then it just boom, everything just goes bad at once. After they get to the hospital, this lady just starts smashing her head against the window, and at that point you've got crazy drivers going across the street. You have explosions happening for cars. Some explosions more Michael Bay-esque than others. May not be necessary. But just all around world building that's done very well.
Yeah.
It makes me care about these characters. It makes me care about their plight. And it even segues into the extra side characters that we kind of don't need them at the end of the day, because once we get back to the main story, which is them on the river, they're gone anyway.
I kind of have to disagree, because it goes along with the struggle. I understand where you're coming from. I definitely understand where you're coming from. But there is a bit of a struggle, and you need those characters to have the movie go along, because...
And it does flesh out the dynamic between their characters, and it fleshes out Mallory, Sandra Bullock's character.
Yeah. Yeah, because if it was just Sandra Bullock and her unborn child, and then later on with her child...
That'd be pretty bad.
Yeah, that child would have killed Sandra Bullock.
I'm not talking about all the characters, just some of the characters.
I really did like the characters in this movie, primarily because they were all cohesive.
Yeah, they were very strong in their own rights.
God, like you have Sandra Bullock and her sister, they worked really well. The banter that they have between one another, they really acted like sisters.
Where, making comparison to our first video with the Ghostbusters, they all didn't feel so natural together.
Yeah. Like, they had their moments in Ghostbusters, but in this one, everything just felt natural. Like, from the characters that are freaking out to the characters that are trying to keep it together, like Tom.
Yeah.
Everything just felt really natural.
He's a soldier, too, right?
Yeah, he was a soldier, and he was doing construction when the crap hit the fan for him. So... That
adds to a lot of his character strengths.
Yeah, it really does. And you have people who aren't so nice. Like, you have... Charles, I believe his name was? John Malkovich's character?
Douglas.
Charles. Douglas was very honest. he was the main one that was like, don't open the door, and people open the door, and crap hit the fan. So Douglas, although you didn't want to like Douglas, although you didn't want to admit that Douglas was right 100% of the time.
Not 100% of the time. 95% of the time.
95% of the time. I will say 95% of the time he was right, because he was wrong about the supermarket. He said that they weren't
wrong about the supermarket, and he turned out to be wrong about Olympia. But I would have been in the same boat as he was, and not wanting to
open that door. Yeah,
shouldn't have done it. But it turned out to not bite him in the butt. So
yeah, because Olympia wound up giving something very great to Mallory in the form of her child. In the form of Olympia too. It's kind of interesting. Do you think that Mallory would have had more to fight for if she just had her son?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I don't know. She still would have had that same. It probably would have played out very much the same.
Yeah.
Just with one less child, and they probably would have focused more on how her kid would mess a lot up.
Yeah, and you also have characters that come along later in the movie, such as Greg. Oh my goodness, Greg! So, like, there are
introduces us to our first glimpse of the entity.
So the madness of this entity.
That's a good way. We'll call it the madness.
Yeah, let's just call it the madness, because it was making people go mad and kill themselves.
Madness.
Yes, the madness. I mean, I think that that's a perfect name for it, primarily because it does make people go mad every time you look at it. I liked that aspect of the movie because there was just so much gold with it. You have Mallory's sister who goes mad and flips the car over and then walks in front of oncoming traffic. You have the lady who's freaking out and trying to get people into the house, and she just becomes so calm. And she goes into a burning car.
Yeah.
So many questions with that. I really like the madness. It left an itch. It really left an itch.
Because we never know exactly what it is, but it's there through the entire film.
Yeah.
Every turn, it's always there waiting.
Yeah. And I'm a huge advocate of sometimes you do not need to see the villain. You do not need to see the evil. A perfect example of this
you just need to see the effect of it.
Yeah, you just need to see the effect of it. A perfect example of this is Paranormal Activity.
Okay.
You don't see this thing at all.
We're talking like the first Paranormal Activity, right? The rest of them they're pretty bad.
I beg to differ.
Okay, I'm sorry. The third one was the best because of that weird, like, cult witch scene that they had.
Yeah.
That had me. That got me more than, like, any of the other games.
I mean, the first two were pretty good. I mean, okay, but the point that I'm making is that
Paranormal Activity's bad.
Paranormal Activity. People talk about this off camera, but the point that I'm making is you didn't see the evil. You just saw its effects constantly, and there was that thing where it was like that low rumble when it messed with the bass that was so freaky, and it was just like you knew that it was coming.
Large concentrated gusts of wind.
Right.
And there.
And we kind of get the same thing here. We constantly see the effects. We hear whispers on the wind.
Yeah.
And we see what it does, but we never get any inkling of what this thing could be.
I mean, we see those charcoal sketches that what Gary, I think, brings into the house. After we figure out that he's insane, as we figure out that he's insane, he lays them out on the table, and there's 3, I think, right?
Yes.
3 really distinct, very different from one another, like ink blots.
Yes. And they're all these different creatures, and I really like that aspect. I was one of those people that come to the end of the movie, I was like, I really want to know what this thing is. Right. Because they teased it so many times. Of course, they teased it at the end when... that
was a hard tease.
That was a hard tease.
They were, like, there.
Yeah.
And, like, they had him over the kid. I thought when the girl was going to take her blindfold off, that's when we were going to see it.
Yeah.
Even if she didn't end up looking at it, I thought that we were going to see it.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of times like that.
I
thought that we were gonna see what they were seeing or what it was in some way.
Yeah. The only other part that we had was the owner of the house. He strapped himself to the chair and he was waiting to see something. And you thought we were going to see something because there was like a second or two where the wind started to blow and then there was a shadow or something.
There was always a shadow.
Yeah.
A few different times.
Yeah. And that brings me to my next point. I really love the aspect of, and you brought this up actually, we got to see this thing's power. And it was really subtle, and it was so cool that you caught it, because it went completely over my head. There was a scene towards the beginning of the movie where you have Mallory, boy and girl,
Right.
and they're in the boat, and this thing is calling Mallory's name, and you see a shadow.
Yeah, when it shifts the boat.
Yeah, it shifted the boat, and it's like like it just leaves so many questions. How powerful is this thing? What is this?
And
thing?
like it really does feel like that scene was cut very early into the turning of the boat.
Yeah.
Like maybe they started to play with the idea, but then they were like, you know what? No, we're gonna pull this back.
Yeah.
We gotta fit more time in for these flashbacks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, overall, it was very effective.
Yeah, and then we have the army of the madness. We just call them the crazies. They didn't have an official name.
Them psychos, though.
Yeah, them psychos. But the crazies are the people that, unlike the people that are killing themselves, they are looking.
They're embracing
this madness of madness. Yeah, and it was done really well.
I believe that, you know, during an apocalyptic situation, you're always going to have your group of believers, I guess, that come in and really embrace the entire idea of what's going on, and they're like, all right, no rules, our rules, time to go.
Right, but the issue that I have with them is that there wasn't much explanation as to why they were able to see this
they
thing
didn't touch on that at all.
and why so many people weren't. The only hint that we got was that
the
Fishy Pete.
Fish fingers.
Yeah, fish fingers. Thank you. Fish fingers at the grocery store. They said
he was in prison.
Yeah,
but was always nice to Charlie.
Yeah,
and then the other group that we hear when Gary comes into the house, he's like a group of psychos from the mental institution.
Yeah.
So maybe something like that. I don't know if that's where you were going with.
Yeah,
it.
but that's about it. Like the only hint that we have as to why these people are the way that they are is that there's some form of mental illness, but even that is just speculation at this point.
Yeah.
We never got a distinct reason as to why what was happening was happening. I enjoyed the aspects of these crazy people. They did kind of break their lore. You have Gary who, you know, he walks in and then they clearly put the camera on his face and you see his eyes and everything is fine.
Right.
And then when you realize that something's wrong with him, he's just like, oh, and all of a sudden his eyes
are crazy.
And it's like, wait, no.
Yeah, do you have control over that?
Right.
Can you turn that on and off? Can I change my pupils real quick?
Right. Like it that aspect didn't make sense. But the movie again was done so well that a lot of people, myself included, while you're in the moment, it doesn't matter. It's just like, holy
viewing,
crap.
I didn't pick up on almost any of this. You know, it was just like, wow, this is just a genuinely good movie.
Yeah.
And a second viewing persists that, you know, this is a really beautifully shot movie. We talked about that. And even the third viewing, you can't get away. They did a lot. They did so much right with this movie.
Yeah.
But that at that point, when you're looking for inconsistencies and you start finding them and you start picking on them at a little bit, you start finding a lot more. You start finding like a big trail.
Yeah. If anything, these are just cracks in the foundation for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't...
Minor fractures.
Minor fractures, if you will. It doesn't take anything away from this movie. It's absolutely awesome.
So moving ahead into the ending.
Yes.
You know, arguably, well, like, the biggest climax of the film was toward a lot closer to the ending than I think a lot of storytelling normally is.
Yes.
But that kind of worked out in the favor. One thing that you had wanted to talk about was Mallory's empathy towards her kids towards the end, right?
Yeah. It was
a really good point.
It was refreshing. It was refreshing, and it was a really powerful scene. You have this woman who, through the majority of the movie, she was not she was not excited about being pregnant. And a matter of fact, when we first see her, she's talking to her sister. She's not excited. They go to the doctor's office, and she's referring to the baby as it, and the doctor says, you can't refer to a boy. It's going to be coming out of you relatively soon. And then she picks up the pamphlet talking about adoption.
And she also had just gotten done painting a painting.
Yeah.
Painting a painting. That she was like, it actually, I feel like it represents people's inability to get attached.
Yes. Yeah. See, again, a lot of those subtle things.
Yeah. Little context clues.
Yeah, those little things that mean big things. And she never named the kids until the very end. So we just have boy and girl. And what brings me back to this movie, to her empathetic nature at the very beginning of the movie, she tells the kids, if you take off your blindfold, I will hurt you. And I'm immediately like, well, clutch my pearls. Like, God. Like,
who says that?
What happened in this woman's soul life where you could tell a big dog-eyed little girl, I will hurt you if you take off your goddamn blindfold.
A big dog-eyed little girl and your own son.
And your own son. So seeing her freak out because the kids get separated, they're about to take off their blindfolds, and then she just has that moment where she breaks and she says, "Don't take my kids."
Yeah.
It was wow. I didn't think it was
very
gonna come.
emotionally impactful.
Yeah. I mean, I knew that she was worried, but I didn't think that she was going to take it to that point of freaking out about losing them. And then there's the big chase scene, which again, I'm not going to take up a lot of time on this. Give me 10 seconds. But, I mean, even if with all the leaves we saw like a footprint, you know, like, and not even like a normal footprint, like a hoof.
Or like claw marks
like,
coming down on a tree.
Like, you know, just something like, what if there was a claw mark?
We got that really specific outline of gust of wind.
Yeah. And even with that, you couldn't see anything. Everything was moving so goddamn fast, which is, again, a testament to the brilliance of this movie.
Absolutely.
But,
I would be scared of wind.
Yeah, wind and leaves.
Well, I mean, not scared, but, you know.
Very cautious. Yes. Very cautiously optimistic of wind and leaves. And then we get to one of your favorite parts, the twist.
Oh yeah, when they find out that it was they were going to a blind school or school for the blind the entire time, I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, they totally Book of Eli that.
You know, I think that there wasn't too many ways you really could have taken that.
You're right.
And they didn't hint at it at all. At all. Like, they did not see it coming, but it makes so much sense.
It made so much sense.
And, you know, they go through, and it's just, they've got a whole community there. They've even got, like leaves and vines growing above the roof with a whole bunch of birds to warn them if something comes near them. Yeah. Even though, like, most of them don't have to worry about it because they're blind.
Right.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think that's great. But even though they did eventually get to the safe haven, like, the psychological damage done to those kids, done. It's set in. They are never going to be the same. They are never going to be normal children.
Yeah.
You know, they've finally made it to a place where they have that potential, and I'm sure, you know, they're still pretty young, so they're going to grow out of a significant amount of that by the time that they get to be up, you know, Mallory's age when we see her in this film. But no, man, they are fucked.
I mean, I think that there's a bit of padding for now, and you know why? They got freaking names.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's like one of the biggest things. But then I posed you another question, right? From birth, they have been referred to as boy and girl up until this very specific moment.
Yeah.
Are they really going to be able, like, how long is it going to take them to kind of, like, realize, like, oh, I have an actual name?
Yeah.
Like, the concept of a name to them up until this point is completely foreign.
Yeah. You know, I want to go with the whole happily ever after theory where they just kind of take to it because, man, they've been through enough, man.
Yeah.
They've been through enough. Like, okay, it's kind of like the whole Walking Dead thing where you have the baby that is born into all this madness and then they're born to all this madness. And normal for them is just like
everyday life.
Yeah, just everyday struggling. People are crying and yelling at each other for things that I don't know why.
The dead are walking around.
Right, and like not only that, but taking it to this movie, like that woman that calls me girl, that's my mom. She's going outside. She constantly has to throw on a blindfold. I have no clue what that's about, but that's life as I know it. So
guess I better throw on a blindfold myself.
Pretty much. Like
exactly. That's what I mean.
You have no clue what's out there because everything is boarded up, and then that just goes back to, and it just hit me. Tom was talking to them about what it was like when he was a kid.
Right.
And he told the whole story about, oh yeah, there were a bunch of kids that met up in this park and there was this really tall tree and then we would all climb it together and we would have the best of time. And I think he even described like a jungle gym and stuff like that. And that was so impactful because they have no clue as to what those things are.
Yeah.
The things that we take it for granted, their little minds can't even wrap around it. All they know is, oh, this makes him really happy, so it must be good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that ties back into the entire psychological trauma. And, like, it's good that they have... He does make a good point. They need hope.
Yeah.
But Mallory makes a really good point. They are never, unless they figure out a way to kill that thing outside, they are never going to do any of that. The closest they're going to get is whatever's happening inside the school for the blind, which there's no jungle gyms or big trees to climb.
It's just a safety hazard.
It's just a safe haven for them.
Yeah.
You know, they'll get to be able to play with other children, but for so much of their lives, their own parent has been so detached.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that they are going to be able to grow into attachments other than for each other. Not in a weird way.
You're right.
But in a sense of like, you know, we're the only two that have actually been able to stick by each other's sides and actually like be there for each other. So,
yeah.
You know, forget the outside.
I think that there is hope because when you think about it, like everyone else is blind but Mallory and the guy that opened the door.
But where's the entity going to go? Where's the hope for that? They're never going to go outside again unless they need to wander around and stumble through the bushes, which I'm sure Girl is pretty traumatized from considering that she was the one that almost took her blindfold off and got got.
Yeah, there's a lot that can go into that, which leads us to the possible next point.
Oh, the potential sequel?
The potential sequel. Didn't you tell me that you read something?
Yeah, I read an article that was talking about how the author of the book wanted to create he was working on a sequel for sure, but he wanted Mallory, the character, to be able to touch on some of the more intricate details of the monsters themselves.
Okay, so up until we actually have that, I think, Josh, I think it's a little time for some theory crafting.
So theory crafting, coming up with some ideas.
Yeah, coming up with some ideas. You just said that you read an article where they were talking about a sequel.
Yep.
So I'm just going to ask you, where do you think this is going to go?
Like, where do I think the sequel's going to go?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a really good question. I don't know. I think that... I'm going to be honest. I don't really feel like it needs a sequel.
No.
I definitely feel like with where it ended, it's fine. It's open to the audience's interpretation, and that is totally great.
Yeah.
I think that's the best possible way that they could have done it. But, I don't know. I'd maybe like to see... what will probably happen is something is going to go wrong and the entity is going to come into the school of the blind. But what I'd rather them see is honestly just them surviving.
Yeah.
In the
new world.
So in the new world, essentially, yeah. And them building their life inside this academy with the outside threat still looming overhead. Maybe it doesn't break in immediately. Maybe that happens like towards the middle or the end of the film. But, I mean, I genuinely am coming to like the end of my rope trying to think of ways that they could have taken this. I mean, what do you think for the sequel?
You know, I think that it was kind of genius that this could set up for a sequel strictly from a marketing standpoint because they gave us just enough where we want more. I personally want more because I talked about a lot in this video. We don't know what this thing is. We don't know how powerful it is. The churning of the boat, what if it's a prequel?
You know,
okay, even if it is a prequel,
that like explains it from like because we got that quick clip of that news article that was like, we have mass suicides happening across Russia and China. So like,
what if it takes off from Russia or China? Exactly. Okay, yeah.
And maybe then we get to see more of what this entity is and does.
Yeah.
And where it started, where it came from. Is it like a government experiment gone wrong?
I hope not.
Was Russia doing some crazy stuff? I believe it.
Yeah, I believe it, especially in this political climate.
Is it just Invisible Godzilla?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Oh my god. I mean, is it from another dimension, a la Stranger Things? Like, there are so many ways that this can go. So from that standpoint, I really wouldn't mind seeing a sequel, especially if Sandra Bullock is in it. Like,
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I mean...
Sandra Bullock would have to probably be in it. She was the front runner for that one.
Oh, yeah.
They'd have to worm her in somehow.
Somehow, but...
Even if she's like an old woman.
Anything. Well, that could be kind of cool. I mean, you have Tom and you have Olympia, and they are kind of like the leaders of this new world, so to speak. So yeah, like you can have them as the leaders of the new world or whatever, and seeing their way of survival, and then like you could have like Tom. He's the more grounded one. Yeah, you can have like Tom be like the more grounded one, and Olympia being the more go get her. I'm gonna live my life kind of thing. And then he's like, what do you think you can do? You're going to do when you get out there? And then she goes, I'm going to kill it. Like,
ooh, okay.
That could be your whole thing. And then you could possibly throw in that she actually took off her blindfold as a kid and she actually saw it, because they're children. They're innocent. They don't necessarily know what good and evil is. All they know is she said, I can't take off my blindfold. Yeah. That's all they literally know. They don't know subtraction. They don't know what school is. They don't know what chicken marsala is.
They know more emotions than I think most kids do at that point.
Right. But other than that, they don't know much of anything.
Nothing of the real world.
I would dare say they don't even know what fear is.
I'm gonna have to debate that. Okay, they spent what, 48 hours on a cold river under one blanket.
Yeah.
Was submerged in water, had a dude had their mom chop a dude with a machete who was trying to take their blindfold off, was tossed around through rapids while their boat was capsized and they almost drowned. They almost had to take their blindfolds off and almost got by the entity. They have their mom threatening to hurt them at every chance that she can get. I'd say that they know fear. They also know that this is a really good one. They start the journey with Tom, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom dies
never
on
came
that
back. Yeah. Yeah.
Do they not know fear? I feel like they know fear.
Okay, I think that they understand it from an emotional standpoint, but as far as that communication, because who's going to give it to them? Who's going to give it to them? Mallory?
He's dead.
Yeah, but Tom only wanted them to see the good in life. Tom only wanted them to have hope.
And he died with their hope.
God, you're dark.
Until they got to the School of the Blind.
Yeah.
And that can start to change things. Well, I'm dark because I can see things from the dark perspective.
Yeah, it is. You said that it is amazing cinematography, which it was, but it was a really dark movie. Yeah. And I'm so glad they didn't go with your dark direction where they get into the school and then
they have to gouge the eyes out.
Yeah, they have to gouge the eyes out because they can't risk them seeing this thing. And
but they couldn't do that anyway because we don't have any rule that says that when you see it, it invites it into the area you're in. It only affects that one individual and tries to get them to look at other things. Besides Greg just killed himself.
No.
And actually, a lot of people just killed themselves. Anybody that saw the entity that wasn't in a mental asylum or in prison, apparently. Just straight up, just killed themselves.
Yeah, which again, I need more information behind that. I need to know what these people were seeing that was making.
Is this an ancient Egyptian deity?
I mean, ancient.
Is it Yaga Baba?
Ancient.
We got a lot of Yaga Baba coming
deity. I mean,
Russian.
There's so much folklore and there's so many directions that this can go in.
There really is.
Yeah.
Is it a Native American spirit? That'd be an interesting take.
It really would, because I don't know, Native Americans don't get enough play.
Their folklore is actually really rich,
really rich. Yes, there's bottom line. There's a lot of directions that this can go in, and
a lot of directions they could have taken this movie in.
Oh yeah, I'm glad that they went into this one though.
Yeah,
very glad. So there you have it. We are the Curbstone Savants. We have talked about Birdbox today, but it's not just about what we think. No. It's not just about what we feel as far as this movie goes. That's one of the best things about movies, in my opinion, that you can have a conversation about them.
It's about starting that dialogue.
It's about starting that dialogue. So
tell us your thoughts down below.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you like us, or dislike it. Tell us why you dislike it. Tell us, well, we hate your opinion, or whatever it is.
I mean, other than the opinion thing, it's only going to make us better. So
exactly.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in. We are the Curbstone Savants.
And we'll see you next week.